A blind maid stepped into the mansion of the richest couple in New York. Her name was Lena Carter, eyes that no longer saw, but noticed everything, the billionaire's wife. Victoria Hale watched her move through the hall, calm and quiet. To everyone else, Lena was helpless. To Victoria, she was a threat wrapped in innocence, because hidden inside her bedroom safe was a file with Lena's name on it. And when that file opened, every lie in the house would burn. Before we start the full story, make sure you subscribe, because what she finds will change everything you believe about guilt and truth. The mansion was bigger than anything Lena had ever imagined. Her cane tapped gently against the marble floors as she counted her steps. 1, 2, 3, stopping just short of the grand staircase. She couldn't see the chandeliers, but she could feel their light through the warmth on her face. Every sound echoed differently here, too clean, too lonely. Victoria Hale appeared from the top of the stairs, her heels clicking like a metronome of power. "You're the new maid?" she asked coldly. "Yes, ma'am." "Lena Carter," Lena replied softly, her head tilted toward the voice. Victoria studied her, half fascinated, half disgusted. "Blind? My husband hires anyone these days," she muttered under her breath. Lena didn't flinch. She smiled politely and said, "I don't need eyes to clean what's dirty, ma'am." For a second, the air froze. Even the maid who escorted her in looked up, surprised. Victoria turned sharply. "Just stay out of my room, understood?" "Yes, ma'am," Lena said, clutching her cane. But the slight tremble in her hand betrayed something else. Curiosity. That night, as she unpacked her few belongings in the servants' room, Lena touched a small locket around her neck. The last memory of the night she lost her sight. A car crash, screaming tires, and a woman's voice crying, "Please don't tell anyone." She could never forget that voice, and even after all these years. The next morning, Lena followed the faint smell of roses and disinfectant into the study. She always knew how to map a room without sight, one tap at a time. The echo told her where the walls were, the warmth told her where the window stood. As she dusted a shelf, she heard footsteps, slow, uneven ones. "Good morning, sir," she said gently. Ethan Hale, the billionaire husband, stopped. His voice was soft, tired. "You can tell it's me already?" he asked. "I don't see faces," Lena smiled, "but I never forget footsteps." Ethan chuckled faintly. "I wish Victoria listened that closely." From the doorway, Victoria's voice cut in sharply. "Lena, go clean the east wing." The tone, that tone, froze Lena mid-step. It was the same voice from her accident, the one she'd heard screaming that night. Her heart raced. She gripped her cane tighter. "Yes, ma'am," she whispered, forcing her voice not to shake. Victoria turned to her husband. "She's strange. I don't trust her." "She's blind, Victoria. What can she possibly do?" Ethan replied softly. But that night, alone in her small room, Lena couldn't sleep. She sat on her bed, tracing the curve of her locket, whispering to herself, "That voice. I know that voice." The walls of the mansion seemed to hum around her. Every creak, every sigh of the wind carried that one sentence again. "Please don't tell anyone." And as she whispered into the dark, "What are you hiding from me?" The faint sound of a lock clicking echoed down the hall, the sound of a safe door closing. Days passed quietly, too quietly. Lena worked like a ghost in the mansion. She never looked at the people around her, but she could feel the lies floating in the air. When people think you can't see, they show their truth more easily. One evening, as Victoria left for a charity dinner, Lena was asked to clean the master bedroom for the first time. The air in that room felt colder, heavier. Each tap of her cane echoed like a warning. She felt her way along the edge of the dresser, polished, smooth, dustless. But the wall behind the mirror felt strange, hollow. She ran her hand along the edge and whispered, "That's not just a wall." A faint metal click answered her curiosity. Her fingertips brushed across a keypad, a safe. Her breath caught. Why would someone hide a safe behind a mirror? Then she froze. The sound of footsteps. Her hearing sharpened. It wasn't Victoria. It was Ethan. Lena. His voice was soft, tired. "You're still here?" She nodded. "Just cleaning, sir." He smiled. "You remind me of someone I once knew. Someone honest." She smiled faintly, pretending not to notice the tension in his words. When he left, Lena turned back to the mirror, her reflection just a blur of shapes and light. Her fingers found a small scratch on the frame. Underneath it was a code, carved faintly into the wood. She traced it with her fingers. 4 numbers, and one question burned in her chest. Why did the code feel so familiar? Lena waited until midnight. The mansion slept, except for her heartbeat. She stood in front of the mirror again, her white cane leaning quietly by the wall. Her fingers traced the numbers she had memorized. 4 clicks. A soft beep. The safe opened with a whisper, like the house itself wanted to keep the secret hidden. Inside, there wasn't gold, no jewelry, just a single brown file. Her trembling fingers brushed across the label. The name was written in bold ink, Lena Carter. Her breath stopped. She ran her hand over the letters again, as if to be sure. It wasn't her imagination. It was her, the maid, the blind woman. She sat on the edge of the bed, carefully opening the file. Inside were photographs, blurred lights, a car, blood on the asphalt. She recognized the sound in her memory. The crash, the screaming, the voice. A document slipped out. Police report, accident, year 2015. Driver, Victoria Hale. Victim, Lena Carter. Her body went cold. Tears slid down her cheeks silently. The woman who hired her, the woman she served tea to every morning, was the one who had taken her sight. Lena whispered to herself, "You knew, and you brought me here." Just then, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Victoria's voice, cold and sharp. "Lena, what are you doing in my room?" The safe door hung open. The file lay on her lap, and for the first time, Lena turned toward the sound of Victoria's voice, not as a servant, but as the truth staring back into the dark. Victoria froze in the doorway, staring at the open safe. The file was in Lena's. Trembling hands, her blind eyes turned toward the sound of Victoria's shallow breath. "You opened my safe," Victoria whispered. Lena didn't answer. "You had no right." Her voice cracked through the silence like glass. Lena rose slowly, gripping the file to her chest. Her voice was calm but heavy. "You were the driver, weren't you?" Victoria stepped back, panic flashing across her face. It was an accident, you don't understand." Lena took a small step forward, her hand brushing the bedpost to guide her. "I don't understand," she said softly. "You hit me with your car and left me there. You begged me not to tell anyone. I remember your voice." Victoria's lip trembled. "I paid for your hospital bills. I made sure you lived." "You made sure I lived blind," Lena said, her tone breaking for the first time. "You hired me because you thought blindness meant forgiveness." For a moment, the mansion was silent, except for their breathing. Then Victoria screamed, "I gave you a home, food. You should be grateful." Lena turned her head slightly, unshaken. "Grateful?" she said quietly. "For being your punishment?" The door opened again. Ethan stood there, pale, holding onto the frame for balance. His eyes darted from Lena to the open safe to Victoria's face. "What's going on?" Lena held the file out toward his voice. "You should read this, sir. It's the truth you've been living with." Victoria tried to grab it, but Ethan's hand stopped hers midair. For the first time, the cold billionaire's wife looked powerless. Ethan sat in his study, the file open on the table. The firelight flickered across his tired face as he turned each page. Police reports, medical bills, signed checks. Every line screamed one truth. His wife had bought silence, not forgiveness. Victoria stood across from him, eyes red. "It was years ago, Ethan," she said weakly. "I panicked. I didn't mean for it to happen." He didn't look up. "You left her there, Victoria, blind, alone, and then you brought her into this house to live with your guilt." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I tried to make it right." Ethan's voice was flat. "No, you tried to hide it." In the doorway, Lena stood quietly. She had come only to return the file. Her fingers brushed against the desk until they found it, sliding it toward him gently. "You don't need to punish her," she said softly. "Life already did." Ethan looked up, not at her eyes but at her strength. "How can you forgive her?" Lena smiled faintly. "Because I don't want to see my past again, even if I could." Victoria covered her face, sobbing. "What are you going to do?" Ethan sighed, closing the file slowly. "What I should have done years ago." The next morning, the mansion filled with whispers. Ethan had rewritten his will. Every property, every account, every share, transferred to a foundation under Lena's name. When Victoria confronted him, his answer was simple. She saw what we didn't, the value of kindness. Lena didn't hear that conversation. But when a lawyer came to her room that evening holding the papers, she whispered only 4 words. "I never wanted this." The story broke like a storm. A single leaked document, Ethan's new will, spread through the company and the news faster than Victoria could react. The morning after, reporters waited outside the mansion gates. "Mrs. Hale, is it true? Your husband transferred everything to the maid? Is the maid your victim?" Victoria shut the blinds, her trembling fingers leaving fingerprints on the glass. The same woman who once looked down on everyone now hid from the world. Ethan had moved to a smaller wing of the mansion, refusing to see her. Lena, though still working quietly, had asked the lawyer to redirect the inheritance into a charity fund. When Victoria found out, she stormed into the study, her voice breaking. "You gave it all away?" Lena turned toward the sound, calm but firm. "I never wanted your money," she said. "Only peace." Victoria's eyes burned. "You ruined me." Lena smiled faintly. "No, Mrs. Hale, you did that yourself, the night you ran away." For the first time, Victoria looked at her. Really looked, as if seeing the person she'd destroyed years ago. Tears welled up. "How can you forgive me?" Lena tilted her head toward her voice. "Because I refuse to live blind in anger." Outside, the reporters shouted questions. Inside, the silence was heavier than judgment. Victoria fell to her knees, sobbing as Lena walked away slowly, her cane tapping across the floor, each step sounding like closure. Weeks passed. The mansion that once echoed with pride now whispered with peace. The reporters left. The noise faded. Only the sound of Lena's cane tapping softly through the hallway remained. She didn't work as a maid anymore. Ethan had turned the mansion into a rehabilitation center for accident victims, named the Carter Foundation. Lena chose to stay, not as an employee, but as its heart. Every morning she guided others through the halls, teaching them how to live beyond what they'd lost. Victoria, meanwhile, had vanished from public life. Some said she moved to another city. Others said she still wrote letters, though she never sent them. One quiet afternoon, Lena sat in the garden. Sunlight touched her face as she turned her head toward the sound of children laughing. A nurse whispered, "Mrs. Carter, are you happy now?" Lena smiled. "Happiness isn't about seeing. It's about understanding what you couldn't before." She reached for her locket, tracing it gently between her fingers. Inside was a faded picture of her parents, and a folded note from Ethan that read, "Some eyes can't see, but some hearts never stop watching." The wind rustled the flowers as she whispered, "Maybe blindness was never my curse. Maybe it was my clarity." The camera slowly pulled back, the once silent mansion now alive with laughter. Light and healing. Fade out. Moral: in a world where power blinds and guilt hides, one woman proved that sight has nothing to do with vision. Lena lost her eyes but found her purpose, teaching others what it truly means to see. Because forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the light the blind still carry,